Claro que hablé. The Venezuelan authorities announced this Wednesday a new criminal sabotage against the facilities of the country's oil industry. The first financing for Cuba's COVID-19 vaccine was approved by the Central American Bank for Economic Integration for 46.7 million euros for Cuba to produce 200 million doses of its homegrown vaccines. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, met in an extraordinary conference to assess the political situation in Mali. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Caracas, Venezuela, this is From the South. I'm Ana Marrero, and we begin with the news. On Wednesday, the Ali Rodriguez Araque Presidential Commission for the Defense and Restructuring of Petróleos de Venezuela, PDVSA, denounced on Wednesday a sabotage perpetrated against the facilities of the country's main industry. Through a press release, the entity informed about an explosion provoked in the eastern polyduct located in the state of Anzoátegui, from where all the fuel is distributed to eastern Venezuela. According to the authorities, this criminal action is part of the permanent work carried out by groups belonging to the extreme right that seeks to boycott the process made by the Bolivarian government in the fuel production, distribution, and commercialization system. As part of the ongoing judicial proceeding against Bolivia's former de facto president, the justice system this Wednesday opened the trial against Janine Áñez and 9 other defendants for the 2019 coup. According to the Deputy Minister of Justice, Jaime Sales, a judgment will be issued, and according to the criminal procedure, in 45 days, the public and contradictory oral trial will begin. The judicial body stated that the first sentence against the former de facto president for the 2019 coup will be known by March or late April. Áñez is accused for sedition, terrorism, and conspiration. In Mexico, the president of the Indigenous Council of the Municipality of Xochicotla in the state of Morelos was assassinated. The state prosecutor's office reported that Benjamin Lopez Palacios was shot today at his home. The incident came just 12 days after Palacios took office as the mayor in the newly created indigenous municipality after winning an extraordinary election. Witnesses told authorities that some 7 people entered the official's house and shot him and then fled in vehicles. According to data from the consulting firm Etelec, with the murder of Lopez Palacio, there are 84 major murders since 2006. In Guatemala, security forces reinforced patrols at borders and blind spots in the event of a possible massive movement of people from Honduras. The Guatemalan police reinforced border patrols to protect the entrance points to the country. According to the Migration Institute, the protocol establishes the installation of checkpoints on main roads to verify that foreigners comply with the biosecurity measures for entering the national territory, while migration authorities require a PCR or negative antigen test to at least 78 hours prior to the arrival, as well as vaccination card with a complete vaccination schedule. Still in Guatemala, the Maya and Cherokee people are fighting for the vindication of their cultural identity and the defense of their territory. This time, they held an assembly to effect the indigenous authorities following their ancestral traditions.
The Maya Cherokee people of San Francisco, municipality of Quetzaltepeque, Chiquimula, elect their new board of directors and ratify the indigenous authorities for the period 2022 under the ancestral methodology of a show of hands.
This exercise is supported by the political constitution as well as by international laws. It is an exercise that does not conflict with any law. It is an exercise that has been carried out for years, which we value.
The Maya Cherokee people of Quetzaltepeque are in a struggle to reclaim their cultural identity because the state of Guatemala has denied their existence, according to indigenous authorities.
And therefore, today we let the world know that Quetzaltepeque is an indigenous community. We are ancestral native people, and we are defending our territory and we are defending our Mother Earth.
This community organization stopped the advance of mining companies that dispute the Maya Cherokee territory and the Department of Chiquimula, according to the Tayuran and El Gigante community coordinator.
We have done a very intense work of sensitization and organization with all the communities, and up to date there are 23 communities with indigenous councils.
For this reason, several indigenous authorities have suffered state persecution, with arrest warrants still in force, according to their own statements.
On September 30th, we had 5 of our people arrested who are defenders of their territory. I know that for defending a territory there is no law that can imprison them or anyone who can issue arrest warrants for them.
The Cherokee Maya people of San Francisco occupy a territory of more than 8,500 hectares, made up of 23 districts, while the board of directors of the Cherokee Maya people will be at the service of the 23 districts that make up the municipality of Quetzaltepeque Department of Chiquimula.
Santiago Botón, TeleSUR Oriente de Guatemala.
United States consumer prices in 2021 rose at fastest pace in 4 decades, an inflation wave that has troubled President Joe Biden as the economy recovered from the pandemic. According to the Labor Department, the Consumer Price Index in the 12 months to December jumped 7%, the highest since June 1982, with housing, vehicles, and energy among the biggest contributors. However, month-on-month CPI growth slowed to 0.5% from November, indicating the price surge might be nearing a peak. The world's largest economy saw a record price increases last year as rising demand and return to the normalcy collide with labor shortage and global supply chain snarls. We'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday, the first financing for Cuba's COVID-19 vaccines was approved by the Central American Bank for Economic Integration, CABEI, for 46.7 million euros for Cuba to produce 200 million doses of its homegrown vaccine, according to a press release on the financial institution's website. As an extraterritorial country member of CABEI, Cuba will have the possibility to strengthen the capacities to develop another drugs and improve the medical equipment and diagnosis kits for the benefit of the population. Dante Mosid, CABEI's executive president, noted that operation will improve the development of vaccines reducing the people's risk of getting infected and shortening the health crisis created by the COVID-19 pandemic. The law includes bolstering the Cuban's biopharmaceutical industry's infrastructure, increasing the production of injectable antibiotics, parental solutions, generic drugs, and similar products. Latin American nations experienced new peaks of infections after the Omicron variant of coronavirus spreads across the continent. Mexico registered 33,660 new cases of coronavirus in the last 24 hours, the highest number confirmed in one day since the pandemic began. Among the most affected regions are Mexico City, Jalisco, Tabasco, and Nuevo León. In Costa Rica, more than 4,000 new infections were registered this Wednesday, the highest numbers since March 2020, and 21 deaths were also reported in the first weeks of 2022. Another affected nation is Uruguay, which reached a new daily maximum with 7,182 people infected with COVID-19 this same day. In Ecuador, the incidence of infection affected especially children, while the government of Cuba declared that the Omicron variant is becoming the predominant one in the island. Worldwide, 9.5% of the people in low-income countries have received only one dose of COVID-19 vaccines, according to data from the firm or World in Data. As a result, the World Health Organization rejected the position of higher-income countries and pharmaceutical companies, following the low distribution of vaccines to the most vulnerable countries. The WHO pointed out that through the COVAX mechanism, no low-income countries have received sufficient doses to cover its entire population with at least one dose by the beginning of 2021. Germany has added to the list of high-risk areas the highest number of countries in over a year that once, including several European Union member states, aimed the increase of coronavirus cases throughout the world and, in particular, the spread of the Omicron variant. In Austria, more than 17,000 new cases of COVID-19 were confirmed in the last 24 hours, representing an increase of 47% compared to the previous date. Bulgaria reported 7,000 cases of SARS-CoV-2 with an infection rate of 700 per 100,000 inhabitants. Data by the World Health Organization show that Germany alone has reported more than 200,000 new COVID-19 cases in the last 7 days. Governments agree that the Omicron variant is responsible for the spread and advocate to use vaccination and the application of security measures to contain it. Paris schools are closing their doors at the eve of the nationwide strike, in which around 3/4 of French teachers will participate to protest against the government's changing rules on COVID-19 testing for pupils, forcing half of the country's primary schools to close. The date of protest quoted by parents' associations will see the closure of 50% of schools in France in what is considered one of the most important unions mobilizations in the recent years in the country. The latest ones in force for primary schools in January 3 has been widely criticized. The current protocol for primary schools in France states that if a positive test is detected in a classroom, all students in that class must undergo 3 COVID-19 tests over 4 days and then return to class if the test is negative. We have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, met in an extraordinary conference to assess the political situation in Mali. Following the meeting, sanctions ranging from border closures to the freezing of certain Malian assets were announced. These sanctions reflect the dissatisfaction of West African countries with the political situation in Mali. The determination comes after the military junta headed by Colonel Sami Goita announced that it will postpone elections in Mali. This is a breach of the commitment they had made to the regional bloc to hold elections before February 2020, thus ensuring a democratic transition. In addition, he unveiled several measures, among them the closure of land and air borders with other ECOWAS members countries and the blocking of all financial assets belonging to Mali held in bloc's central bank as well as in other banks. They also communicated that they will suspend financial aid to the country. The Russia and North Atlantic Treaty Organization Council ended a meeting in Brussels that lasted 4 hours. The Council meeting marked the second stage in a series of talks between Russia and the West on the country's proposal for the European security. The first stage was the talk between Moscow and the United States that took place in Geneva in January 10. And the third stage will happen as an Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe meeting in Vienna on January 13. The Russian delegation was led by Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko and Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin, while NATO was represented by its Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, and representative of 30 NATO member states in Brussels. Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko, who led the Russian delegation in Wednesday's talk with NATO, said the meeting revealed many disagreements on fundamental issues.
At the same time, the talks revealed many disagreements on fundamental issues. One of the main issues is that NATO selectively interprets the principle of indivisibility and security. In NATO's view, it exists only for alliance's members. If NATO opts for the policy of deterring Russia, we will respond with measures of counter-deterrence. If it uses the policy of intimidation, we will respond with counter-intimidation. If it looks for vulnerabilities in the Russian defense system, we will look for NATO's vulnerabilities. It's not our choice, but we don't have other options if we don't overturn this current very dangerous course of events.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg described the meeting of the Russia-NATO Council as a positive sign despite significant differences over the situation in Ukraine and the security in Europe.
At the same time, both Russia and NATO allies expressed the need to resume dialogue and to explore a schedule of future meetings. NATO allies are ready to meet again with Russia to have discussions in greater detail, to put concrete proposals on the table and to seek constructive outcomes.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you can also follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. On TeleSUR English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.